we pull together a report of how much kids are experiencing different types of content online, be that suicidal ideation, self-harm. We saw increases across the board in every category except for one.
Welcome to What Are You Doing Right Now, the world's first on-the-spot podcast. I'm Paul Chambers, and joined with me today is Sam Springfield. Sam, thanks for joining.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'm going to start a timer for 10 minutes here with using my magic wand to start this timer over here. Why don't you take 10 seconds and share more with the audience about yourself?
Yeah, so Sam Springfield, Senior Director of Content at Bark Technologies, which for those of you who don't know is a parental controls company. Started out as an app. We're actually turning 10 years old this summer, which is really exciting. Launched a phone, launched a kids watch, and there's plenty more that we do, but I basically oversee all of our content, social media, videos, blogs, you name it.
Okay, so there's a ton to unpack there, which I'm super excited. One, I'm mainly very excited you're going to be speaking at Sub Summit this year.
Yes.
I was nerding out on like a lot of the data things as a parent of 4 kids. I was like, oh, this is like super interesting. But let's take a step back and dive specifically into like your role. So what are the components that you see over on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I have a small but mighty team under me. So I have my social media team. So we have all of our organic social is under my team. That's anything from what you see on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, TikTok, you name it. And then we have a ton of resources for parents and guardians. So we have blogs, tech guides on like any device or platform that you might need help with. You name it, we've probably got it. App reviews, content reviews. And then we actually just launched a podcast called Parenting in a Tech World, which is also the name of a book that my CMO co-authored and our Facebook group of over 600,000 parents. So lots going on, but all really fun stuff.
So the podcast is something that was like, had been living rent free in my brain for a while. I'd always, as kids that are Gen Alpha kids, I'd always wanted to like start something that's like understanding Generation Alpha. Cause I do think like as a parent, that's the biggest challenge out there right now. We'll come back and unpack that here in a second, but there's so many platforms. You say a small but mighty team. How many people are on your team?
3 directly on my team. And then we have a marketing intern who's amazing and helps us. And then I have someone who kind of splits between our community team and my team.
Absolutely overwhelming to feel like
Yes.
How many platforms you guys are managing with that size team and, you know, so truly small, but mighty. Where do you focus most of your attention? Like what channel do you guys focus most of your attention right now on?
I think, with our blog content and all of the resources that we're creating for parents, so much of that is spread out through social. We have, I would say our largest following comes from Instagram. So we really try to push educational content for parents on Instagram it's actually funny, Understanding Gen Alpha. I think if it hasn't gone out yet, we have a post coming that's like dissecting Gen Alpha slang. Because as you know, that is an ever growing dictionary.
Yeah.
The slang words do not stop. But lucky for us at Bark, part of what our algorithm does is it knows what kids mean when they're using slang or they're using emojis to trick parents. We're able to detect and alert parents to those types of things through the app.
I did one of those videos the other night with my daughters where we all held water in our mouths and my parents, their grandparents read like some of the slang words and see if we could hold them in. It was quite amusing.
Those are hilarious.
Yeah. So do you see a lot of the parents? So you see the parents hanging out on Instagram mostly. I know you also have like a big Facebook. There's a big Facebook group that,
yes.
Do you guys oversee that? Do you just kind of hang out in there? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's called Parenting in a Tech World. It is a private group, but you're welcome to join it. And it's essentially a massive Facebook group of parents just trying to navigate the digital world. We have an incredible community team that's dedicated to that group, as well as engaging with all of our social channels. They're the ones messaging and commenting back and forth with people. So if people come to tell, their struggles as parents, but also their wins as parents, which I think it's nice to see those, because I can't imagine being a parent or a teen today, just knowing what I know in the space that we're in. But it's a really great resource for parents, guardians.
After we last talked, I dove into it, and it's funny watching some of the conversations. Some of it really resonates, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm wondering about that too. And some of it's like, oh wow, you're feeling very overbearing as a parent right now. But that's just me being judgy, in my own personal beliefs. But it's fascinating because it's a constant storm of like conversation starters, and some pick up more steam than others. Like, how do you decide like what to get involved in groups like that? How to like moderate those conversations?
I mean, our community team, again, they're incredible. They do a really great job of, allowing certain conversations to get to a certain point before they realize that, like, okay, this parent's not getting what they asked for necessarily. All credit goes to them. And I think that ultimately, we'll start to see, when TikTok was supposed to be shutting down and then Red Note, the app popped up and that went crazy. So like we only allowed so many of those posts to come through because they're going to get all the same information. So it just kind of depends on what the topic is. And oftentimes the posters will decide when they want the conversation to end as well. If they get the answer they feel like they came for, they can turn the post off too. So
yeah, that's cool. Well, the software is designed for, obviously the parents, but then you have the phone that the kids are using. So you're kind of marketing to them in some ways, but not really. I don't know. Tell me how you approach your content strategy. I'm curious about that because Gen Alpha is using it, but Gen X and millennials and maybe some Gen Zs as well are the ones that you're marketing to, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. Kids definitely know what Bark is and who we are now. It's interesting over the holidays when we were shipping a ton of, phones and watches for gifts. All of our packaging comes with Bark tape on the outside of it. And we actually had some parents ask us like, hey, you're ruining Christmas. Like, could you please not use that? So like immediately, we changed the tape that our packages were sent in because kids did know what it was. It's really cool. We've heard some stories recently where teens have been like, I'm using a Bark phone and I love it. Because it is hard because kids are kids and everyone wants an iPhone. So when you're not using an iPhone, even if you're not using a Bark phone, oftentimes you're getting bullied for having green text messages. Like even adults do that. We have to, not only are we trying to get kids to understand like we're here to help them and protect them and we're just trying to keep them safer in real life and online, we also have to market to parents who absolutely understand there's a problem and want to do whatever they can to protect their child from it. And then there's parents on the other side who are like, it could never happen. It's what we call like not my kid syndrome. Like it could never happen to them. We have to explain to them like, unfortunately, it could. We just launched our annual report at the end of January, which is something we do every year. It's we analyze data across kids' devices. This year it was almost 8 billion data points. Wow. And we pull together a report of how much kids are experiencing different types of content online, be that suicidal ideation, self-harm, or cyberbullying, predation, you name it. So that just came out. And I think that that's something that helps parents realize, okay, this is something that's happening to kids across all ages.
What was in the 8 billion data points there? Like what was the most surprising thing that you saw come out of your annual report to you?
There's two things. We also break down like top flagged apps for certain flagged alerts. And Twitter/X has always been on the list, but this year they were number one, I think, in like 4 or 5 categories, which was interesting. Wow. The other thing is we saw for like the first time ever, I think, or at least in recent years, we saw increases across the board in every category except for one. And some of them were rather significant increases in percentages, like 4 to 5% increases in anxiety and self-harm and suicidal ideation. So the more that kids are online, obviously, the more they're experiencing those things. So it makes sense, but it's also just like, it's kind of mind blowing at the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy sometimes. I mean, I'm constantly trying to monitor what, my twin daughters are 14. So constantly trying to monitor, but it's so hard to keep up and all the craziness of it with all the new things coming out all the time too.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So as we're wrapping up on our time here, two final questions for you. What's one big aha moment you've had recently, whether it be, a piece of content you've worked on or something you've done with the team, a new tool you've discovered? Is there anything that you're like, oh gosh, this could be game changing for us?
I think, I'll take it back to the podcast. It's been really well received. It's something that since I joined Bark, a little over 2.5 years ago, I was like, we have so many resources and parents unfortunately don't have all the time in the world to read or to sift through a Facebook group. And like, we shouldn't be spending that much time sifting through it, So I think giving them some other platform to take in what we have to provide to them has just been really rewarding. It's just been challenging as well. This is the first time I've ever done that. It's been a big learning curve for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to do a whole nother interview later on down the line here on just the podcast because I'm fascinated about that too. Last question for you. Any cool tool you've discovered recently, like an AI tool or image generation tool or anything like that you guys have played with and found value in?
Yeah. So we use Opus. I think it's technically called like Opus
Clip?
Yeah, Opus. And it is such a game changer for getting short form content. I love it. That's where we get all of our like short video content from the podcast and other things that we're recording. The automated captions, like it's just
cool.
time saving.
Yeah. It's so cool how you can upload, because I found it and I experimented with it and played with it. And I still use it today for some things. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing editor on staff here. But like, if you want like quick and just get it done, like you can throw the podcast in there and it'll give you like 50 clips to choose from almost. With captions, with cool zooms, like everything.
Yes. And I love that it rates it too, based on the like what they think is going to perform well. So it's been a game changer.
Listen, Sam, I'm going to keep you on time today. We ran up to 12 minutes because we had so many amazing things to talk about. I'm sure we'll have more. Thank you for taking the time to jump on with me today.
Yes. Thanks. Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Sam.
Right. See ya.